Most leaders I work with are not avoiding people. They're avoiding the moment where they have to say something specific, something real, something that might land badly or change the dynamic in the room forever. And so instead of saying one thing clearly, they say something else close to it, close enough to feel like they've done the job, far enough away that nothing actually changes. That's what we're talking about this month. I'm Liz Murray. Welcome to Take 5 with me. This month is all about standards and boundaries, and I want to start right at the heart of it because everything else this month builds from here. Why do leaders avoid hard conversations? And what is it actually costing them and their teams when they do? Because in my experience, it's not the big dramatic moments that erode leadership. It's the small, repeated decisions to stay vague, to soften the message, or to say almost the truth instead of saying the actual truth. And over time, that pattern becomes the culture. Let me give you an example. I worked with a leader recently who on paper was doing everything right. Open door policy, regular one-to-ones with team members, always available, always approachable. But their team was stuck. The same performance issues kept surfacing month after month, and nothing was shifting. When I started working with this leader, I asked them one question. When you give feedback, what do you actually say? They walked me through a recent conversation, a team member whose work had been consistently below the standard for weeks. They'd raised it, they'd sat down, they'd said something like, I just wanted to let you know there's room for you to grow in this area, and I'd love to see you step up a little bit more. That was it. There was no specific example, no clear standard named, no indication of what needed to change or by when. The team member left that conversation nodding, and they had absolutely no idea what they were supposed to do differently. This is what I call avoidance, wearing the costume of feedback. The leader showed up, they said words, they ticked the mental box that said, I've addressed it. But the real content, the specific behavior, the direct expectation, the honest consequence stayed safely inside their head, where it couldn't cause any discomfort to anyone. This is not a communication failure. It's an avoidance pattern. And it's far more common than most leaders care to admit. Here's another version of the same pattern that looks completely different on the surface. A leader I know had been meaning to address something with a team member for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. They knew the conversation needed to happen. They had mentally rehearsed it over and over. They told themselves they'd do it after the project wrapped up and after the busy period settled, after things had calmed down a bit. Things were a bit too busy at the moment. In those 6 weeks, the behaviour had spread and 2 other team members had noticed it. The standard had quietly shifted for the whole team, not because anyone decided it should, but because nothing had been said. And the leader had convinced themselves that the moment had passed. It hadn't passed. It had just gotten harder. These are 2 different leaders with 2 different situations and the same pattern underneath. Avoidance doesn't always look like silence. Sometimes it looks like a conversation that happened but didn't really go anywhere. It didn't go where it needed to go. Sometimes it looks like feedback that was given but didn't land because it never actually was clear enough. Both are avoidance and both have a cost. And here's what that cost looks like in a team. Standards shift without anyone naming them. People sense something is unsaid even when they can't put their finger on what it is. And trust erodes quietly, not in a dramatic moment, but in the accumulation of conversations that almost happened. Your team's not confused about your values. They're confused about your standards. And that confusion starts with the leader. Now, I want to be clear about something before we go any further. This is not about becoming harsher. It's not about having confrontational conversations or delivering feedback like a verdict. It never should be. It's about becoming specific. When that first leader I mentioned shifted from, I'd love to see you step up, to, in the last 3 project reviews, the reports have been late and incomplete. This is the standard I need met every time. What's getting in the way? Everything changed. Same leader, same relationship, completely different conversation. The team member finally understood what was required and they delivered it. Clarity isn't cruelty. Specificity is not an attack. When you name the behavior, the standard, and the expectation clearly, you give the other person something real to work with. Over the next 4 weeks, I'm going to be unpacking this theme from every angle. Next week, we're looking at the cost of soft standards, what leaders think is kindness, but is actually creating chaos in their teams. Week 3 this month, I'm going to challenge you on how you think about leadership boundaries entirely, because I think most leaders have it backwards. And week 4, we're bringing it all together and looking at how standards shape culture and what your team's behavior is actually telling you about your leadership right now. If any of what I've shared today is landing with you, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. And if you want to go deeper on this work right now, my Be Exceptional course is online and it's designed specifically for leaders who are ready to step up and stop carrying everything and start leading with clarity. The link's in the description below. I'll see you next week.